Welcome to M-powerTV, where your dreams take flight. We dive deep into conversations that uplift, educate, and inspire. Incredible stories of women who've faced challenges and broken barriers. Celebrate victories, learn from setbacks, and push forward together. Ready to get inspired? Let's go.
Hello and welcome to Woman Power. I'm your host, Lorna Grayling, and today we're going to talk about how to raise obedient kids. Something I'm sure you all would like to know, and me definitely too. So joining us in studio all the way from Tennessee is expert Hettie Brittz. She's an author, she's a life coach, and she is a leadership expert. She's also compiled an award-winning training program for parents. Hettie, thank you so much for joining us in studio today. Welcome to the show. We are very excited to hear what you are going to share with us.
Thank you, Lorna. It's a privilege to be with you. And I know that you have wonderful kids, so I don't think I'll be preaching at you. I'll just talk to myself.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, my brother always say, my kids grow up despite me and not because of me. So that is very, very funny. And I am your typical palm tree mother that you describe in your book. So my kids definitely grow up despite me. Not very intentional on raising them. They're just here, you know. And the next thing I'm like, oh, they're around. They've grown up.
I wonder what your husband's profile is, because it usually takes two, and it's very helpful when two are on the job. But you are the kind of mom every child hopes for, because you probably tell them what to do and then you never check back. You just go on your optimistic merry way and hope it'll get
Hettie, you have an extraordinary book. I read it when my kids were so small, and I was so blessed to have been able to read your book. I grew up in the times where my parents and my teachers, we just got in hiding, right? You just got a slap. Like if you said the wrong thing, or we were really disciplined, and I feel like we grew up pretty okay, who knows? But these days, that is not the case at all anymore. Schools are not able to discipline children. Parents in many states are not able to discipline children. And I absolutely am in love with your training program on how to raise obedient kids. So tell us a little bit about your program and why this topic is so appealing to many parents.
I really believe that kids have a unique design. And when we are raising kids, we're interacting with that design. So it's not a scientific experiment where you can feed A in on this side and then you'll have B as a result on the other side, because you're in the middle. It's the child's unique design. Yeah. And whatever we try to teach them, they get to say, yes, thank you, or no, thank you, or maybe later. And that's the frustrating part. And that's why we can't just have discipline tricks up our sleeves, and definitely not fear-based discipline, because that does not really connect the two hearts. And I believe that parenting is a connection of hearts, and depending on the quality of that connection, kids will want to obey or they won't. And then, of course, personality types do play a part, because there are some kids who like to push the boundaries. But generally speaking, I believe there are three things we need to know to have obedient kids or more obedient kids. The first is who they are and who we are, so that we understand the interaction. And then we need to understand healthy authority, so that we don't use fear. We need to understand behavior, because like you said, we got spanked for everything, because everything you did, was labeled disobedience, and disobedience always, warranted a punishment. But we actually distinguish between 8 types of misbehavior, and only one of them is willful defiance. So only one of them technically is disobedience, and that's the only one that actually responds to quote unquote punishment. That's not a popular word anymore. Let's say correction. All the others will only actually improve when we teach skills.
Absolutely. I love what you're saying about fear-based, because exactly that was the way we were raised. You were just too scared to misbehave because you knew the consequences. But these days we don't have that. So training kids and ourselves, I think, is so important. And knowing who is in the home, I think, and that is something that you really, it's very profound in your book. I'm absolutely in love with how you describe all the different personality types. Because like you say, I mean, with my own kids, I have 3 children as well, and they're so vastly different. What works for the one definitely does not work for the other one. I mean, the discipline or the correction, as you call it, is just not the same at all. And it's to kind of learn that and know the difference. So
absolutely, because if you have one of these real calm, peaceful kids that I call the pine trees, if you send that child to their room, they go, thank goodness, some peace and quiet. It's not a correction, it's a reward. But then you take that feisty rose bush, thorns and flowers, the kid that always is doing something, but who gets a little mean when they're opposed. If you send that child to his room, he's gonna wreak havoc there. He's gonna destroy something, because they hate being confined like that. The palm tree is probably just gonna find out what other game he can play in his room, or he's gonna talk to you from the room and keep you busy and engaged anyway and get his way. And the boxwood will feel so rejected, because that's that sensitive little rule follower who doesn't want to upset parents, and being sent away is awfully hurtful to that personality. So to understand how to navigate that does help, because we're trying always to keep that connection, because parenting within a connection is like gardening inside the garden. And if you're parenting without a connection, it's like standing outside of a garden now, and now you're trying to prune a tree that's way there in the garden. You're going to have to throw a hand grenade. And that's actually what happens when parents don't have a connection with their child. It's very hard to get that child to collaborate. And then they resort to all sorts of abusive ways and mean-spirited ways to get kids to comply. And we can prevent that by building a bond. And then it helps to know what brand of love they need. And that depends to a large extent on their personality type.
Absolutely, yes. I love that, to respond with the brand of love, because again, kids experience love in so many different ways, right? For the one, you'll give them a hug and say, I'm so proud of you, or just a hug maybe, and that's love to them. For the other one, they don't really respond to hugs. They're not a touchy-feely child. So for them, you need to say, right, I'm proud of you, I love you, and to kind of know the difference, right?
And then you have the ones that have pizza as a love language.
Okay, or otherwise buy them something, do something good for them, right? To know. So is that something that your book covers as well? Is the different love languages that you can teach or that you can apply in parenting?
Yeah, we call them, we call it fertilizer. We say, what's the fertilizer for this particular tree type? And when parents do the personality profile, they actually get that in the report, and it tells them, this is your child's fertilizer, this is the frostbite, and here's the fast forward, the ways in which your child can grow, and this is your child's fields of greatness and their forces within, those things that are so unique about them that you can nurture, the areas in which they can be little leaders. And it helps to be able to nurture what's in them and not to try and build into them what isn't even there.
Or control them, right? To try and control them. I think for me personally, as a parent, for a long time, I was the one that was scared and had fear, and I tried to control my child in a way that, that they wouldn't step out of the boundaries or whatever the case is, or misbehave in public or whatever. It was actually my fear more than just training my child and loving my child. So I think for me personally, it was a lot of realization when I read your book. It was that discovery of who am I and what is my personality type, and then how to adjust accordingly. Hettie, parenting in general, I mean, that is tough, right? Whether there's only a mom or a mom and a dad, What do we do in a home, and how do we conquer that when parents don't necessarily see eye to eye in terms of parenting styles? Let's call it that.
This is going to sound counterintuitive, but do a happy dance if you're not exactly the same, because it's in the interest of your kids that you have different parenting styles. Because when babies are really little, we need a lot of nurturing, and that may not be both of you. And then in the toddler years and the early, preschool and up until the middle school years, more or less, there's a lot of discipline needed, and somebody needs to be structured and get all the schedules right and think of all the things they need for school and so forth. That's a different person altogether. And then as I get older, somebody needs to be able to be more of a coach than a hands-on helper. Be a coach and fill in the gaps and let go every now and again for them to learn from their own mistakes. That's a different style once again. And so what the good news about differing is figure out whose time it is to shine, like whose parenting style is a natural match with where your child is developmentally. And then let that parent lead with the other one's support. And once we understand that nobody's style is wrong, your timing may just be wrong, we can get on the same page more easily. And typically it means we need to agree on a few things. We need to agree what's reasonable expectations of our kids, what are consequences that we both can live with, what are rewards for that extra effort that we both think are reasonable, and then what do we regard as healthy family life. And when we have that figured out, that gives a structure, and around that we can build the detail.
That communication, right? Communication in a family, especially between a husband and a wife, or even just between the parent and the child, saying, all right, let's sit down and let's discuss the playing field and the rules, and then we can move forward from that. I feel like there is a huge lack. And for a long time in my life as well, I can honestly say, because of not discussing the play field and the rules beforehand, you kind of are confronted with this huge explosion, and that's usually when you try to seek help. Like, now we have to manage this situation, right? So how do we fix that? But we can prevent a lot of that by planning ahead, right? You have a book out. It's called Unnatural Mom. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to allow us to make more episodes and be inspired and empowered by incredible people. Tell us about that. Why do you feel like you were an unnatural mom, and how do you now help other moms? Because I can totally relate with that book.
Do you identify with that flopped cake on the cover? That absolutely...
Man, and you look at other moms and they just look so, in control of everything. And for me, I'm like, oh my goodness, how did I end up in this place with all these kids? How did this happen?
I was sure I was going to be a natural. I was sure of it because I studied speech pathology, and part of our studies was, child development. So I had the knowledge, and I really wanted a baby, and we waited 5 years for her. So actually 6 in the end. So I was really ready. I had sewed a bunch of stuff, and I don't even sew. I was so maternal, I thought. And then once she was there, I just felt as though nothing came naturally for me. The breastfeeding wasn't working. I didn't enjoy motherhood. I felt extremely disrupted and frustrated. I was a pretty ambitious person in my work, and I felt that I couldn't work. And then I felt guilty about feeling frustrated. And it was just an awful cycle. And I had to make peace with the fact that my design has a struggle in the baby years. It's just not my time to shine. I was a lot better the moment they were in their preschool years, and now we have great relationships. But it really was just very hard at the beginning, and it was unnecessarily hard because I wanted to take care of my kids my way, and I had to learn to take care of them their way. Especially with my oldest, I had to discover that she was my absolute opposite. I'm a combination of rose bush, boxwood, and palm tree. So we call me a contra pine, and she's a pine. So she's everything I'm not. And it wasn't a natural bond. We needed help to bond. And I remember making this inner vow. I prayed and I said, Lord, if I can figure out how to have a relationship with my daughter, then I want to put this in a book and help other people, because it shouldn't be so hard. And that's really where Growing Kids with Character and eventually Unnatural Mom came in. That was a promise kept, that I want to make it easier for other moms.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the fact that you've put it out there and that now people can talk about it and say, all right, look, motherhood just doesn't come naturally for everyone out there, even though, you know, some might just look so in control and at ease with being a mother and at peace with it as well. Like they're just at peace with it. And then where others, you know, in my case as well, I just felt like this, you know, is very unnatural for me as well. I was struggling with everything, the breastfeeding, the sleeping. My child was crying 24/7. I couldn't figure out why. I wasn't sleeping either. So, you know, all of us were driven insane. So that is really, really hard. And I think just talking about it already puts it out there and gives other moms that peace, like, all right, you're not alone. You know, there are other moms as well feeling this way. And then what can one do in that situation? Because when you're in it and you know, kids are maybe out of control, maybe you do have disobedient kids right now at the moment, and parents don't even know where to start. Like, you know, how do I fix this? Where do they start? What is the best place to kind of get I want to say control of your life back, right? You're not going to control your kids. That's not possible. But how do you get control of your life and your sanity back and then have a plan to move forward with?
Well, there are 5 things that we call the 5 R's. That if you have only a little bit of energy, invested in one of the 5 R's every day until you have built this structure around which you can build all the details. And that those 5 R's are, first of all, respect. Make sure you know what it is to be respected, and that means yourself and your kids, and teach them that. So focus on respect between you and your spouse, and between you and your kids with each other. Siblings need to respect each other too. And then secondly, make sure that the rules are few, are positive, and are clear. Things like we take care of each other and our stuff. There's a time for everything. We listen to mom and dad. Positive rules, simple, easy, no more than 5. And then the third thing is build roles or responsibilities. Make sure everybody knows what's expected of them. And it's simple tasks that serve the whole family, not just making your bed, putting your bowl in the sink, but something that adds to the whole family economy. Everybody needs to pull their weight. That's the third one. Otherwise, your kids are going to act like foreign citizens. They're not going to keep to the rules because it's not their country. Think of it that way. So make sure they have a job. And then fourthly, make sure that you have rituals. Things like every Wednesday night we eat mac and cheese. It doesn't have to be going on a fancy vacation every month. It's something just simple that makes your life with your children predictable. And now I forgot the 5th one, but
that's fine. It will come back to you.
But I got it.
You got it?
Routine. It's routine. Have this rhythm. Try and get everybody up at the same time every day. And you get up an hour before they do, so you can have a little bit of mom time. And then get everybody to bed at a reasonable time. And the moment you put certain tasks like eating and doing schoolwork and doing the laundry, once you get that into a rhythm, kids don't push against that as much. I mean, you don't fight me if I say you need to brush your teeth. Why not? Because you've done it so many times, the same time, in the same way. So that rhythm, that routine breaks down the resistance, and you'll have a lot less disobedience. So just those 5 R's are a good place to start.
I like that. I think something that I definitely had to work very hard on is that routine, because being a palm tree You're laughing already, right? That personality type just doesn't go with routine. Life just goes as it goes, right? And I had to actually work very hard against my, I want to say, the way I've been formed, or against my design, how I'm put together is to go out and on purpose create a routine. Whew, that was hard, but I do know when I did that, it definitely made quite a difference. It's almost like we're focusing a little bit on smaller children. Thinking about teenage kids now, because that's a whole different environment. I always say I know now why certain insects eat their young. It's because they want to avoid the teenage years. There's a reason for that, right? But teenagers and older children, is it ever too late to start implementing tools and a training program in your home?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I do have the separate courses for the little ones and the tween trees and the teen trees, because there are things that are different. But no, it absolutely is never too late. But this is the phase in which that healthy authority is so incredibly important, because we can't control anymore. We can't just say so and they have to do it because we say so. This phase rests so much on whether there really is equity in the relationship. It's no longer about scaring them into obedience, because they're not scared. What they face in life out there is a whole lot scarier than you can ever be. So fear is not going to get you anywhere. There has to be a sense of, this is my safe place at home. And here is somebody who truly has my best interest at heart. Here is somebody who will give me advice when I need it. Here is somebody who won't overreact or jump to conclusions when I speak about something slightly scary for the parent. This is somebody that is a safe person to talk to, and not a person who is set on what's the punishment and what's the consequence and how do I get you to never do that. But somebody will say, no, discipline is really shaping my child's thoughts, choices, actions, and behavior so that there can be habits towards actual maturity. So if parents approach it that way with teens, then they'll stop just fixing behavior and they'll say, how is my child thinking? Like, how did he make this decision? We yell that, we say, what were you thinking? How could you make such a stupid choice? We shouldn't ask it in that way, but we should ask it. We should ask, how did my child decide to take somebody else's Adderall so that he could get an A in math? How did he not realize he had other options? How did he not realize he could ask, Mom, I don't get the math and I don't think I can ever get an A. And I want one. I need it for college, access or whatever. Help me. Like, why did my child not know to ask for help? Those are the important question. But if we treat it like a capital crime because the child, stole drugs, and we slam down on that behavior like a ton of bricks, we're not going to get anywhere. The only thing that happens then is the teens make sure they don't get caught the next time, but they still don't have the life skills. So it's so important with teens to stand back and say, in making this mistake, what did my kid not understand or have or do correctly? Because that's my cue as to what I should do now as a parent.
Oh, that is extremely powerful. I love that. It's almost like we need to get behind the result of the and of course, I mean, to implement consequence as well, but in a loving way, right? Oh, that is very powerful. Hettie, we are almost at the end of our show. We've just been having such a great time. In a nutshell, tell us a little bit about your training program, what you do, where people can go and have a look at it, and what it entails.
Yes, so there are two places. They can come to my website at hettiebritz.com and they look at courses, and there they will find the Tall Trees Parenting course. And it covers, discipline, temperament, healthy authority, a bunch of other things, every phase of parenting. And then I also have a lot of parenting resources in both English and our home language, Lorna, Afrikaans. People have noticed our accent, so also Afrikaans resources and English resources at evergreenparenting.co.za. So those are the two places, hettiebritz.com or evergreenparenting.co.za.
Thank you, Hettie. So I'll make sure that the links are on the screen. A last word of wisdom to moms out there. If you can give your 25-year-old self some advice of what you know right now, what would you say to yourself?
I would say you're going to play such a big role in your children's lives, but you are not the final word. And even some of the work you won't complete in their lives will get completed in good time. And you're not in this alone.
That's beautiful. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for this privilege. I enjoyed it, Lorna.
Well, that's it from me, Lorna Grayling. If you would like to get in touch with Hettie, follow the links on the screen right now. Until next week, goodbye. Times that we really thought he was dead, because he would be screaming and you would hear all this torture and then they would shoot.
I said to Lorna, you couldn't feel Jesus. It felt like he left you. You're sort of on your own.
Like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel to allow us to make more episodes and be inspired and empowered by incredible people.